Hi everyone, Shannon Petrovich with Therapist Talks. Sexual trauma, 6 critical truths to help you heal. Sadly, sexual trauma is something that far too many people experience in their lives. The definition of sexual assault is simple: any sexual action taken towards you that you didn't want. The severity of trauma runs a broad range, of course, but what is important is the perception of the traumatized person, how the trauma impacted how they see themselves, others, and their lives. Healing from this is a journey and ideally involves help from a therapist. There's also a national hotline that can be a first step. It's 1-800-656-4673. The last 4 digits are HOPE. I wanted to share 6 critical truths to help you start your healing process or to help you understand if you know someone who has been assaulted. Number 1, you're not alone. I know that sounds cliche, but millions of women and men around the world have experienced these abuses. In the past week, calls to the hotline have increased 57%. It matters to tell someone, to talk about it, even though you know on some level you're not alone. Really feeling that is different and it is helpful. You're not alone in your complex story or in your self-shame and blame. When you sort it out with someone, you realize and you will feel better. Number 2, most sexual assaults are not reported and most suffer through the aftermath, never telling anyone. When someone talks about it, even if it happened decades ago, it can be re-traumatizing to share that, and they will re-experience the shame and confusion and triggers they've buried for all those years. Number 3, the most common sexual assaults are from someone you know, an acquaintance, a date, a friend, a beloved priest, a coach, a doctor, or even a family member. And this brings a raft of complexities and confusions and often many layers of self-blame, guilt, shame, and anger, not only at the other person, but at yourself. In assaults where the person is known to you, there's usually a great deal of manipulation that happens to groom the person to be assaulted. There's pressure, pushing past boundaries, coercion, promising love, perpetrating lies about how special the relationship is and that this experience will make it more special, shaming the person for being a tease or a prude, threatening to spread negative rumors, threatening to spread rumors if you tell about the assault, mocking your weaknesses, scoffing at your resistance, saying no one will believe you, and 1,000 other methods of shaming, blaming, pressuring, and manipulating. Number 4, in relationships where there is anger and aggression and violence, many women talk about how they acquiesce to sexual pressure in order to placate their boyfriend or husband, knowing that to resist will inflame that anger and may put them in more danger. This is a very difficult assault to heal from, as the person feels she is to blame for acquiescing. But one must consider the entire power dynamic. This is still unwanted sexual activity and is suffered in order to deal with the fear of his anger and violence. It's important to recognize that this is also sexual assault and it leaves the same scars. Number 5, sexual assault is most often about power and control. It's used during war to degrade and demoralize the other side. It's about one person seeing himself as above you, his needs and wants more important than yours, and putting you down and making you feel shame and powerlessness to make him feel better. See also the videos on narcissism and malignant narcissism. Number 6, as soon as you feel threatened or powerless, your brain's trauma response is triggered with a rush of stress chemicals that course through your entire body and cause a fight, flight, or freeze response. We often feel that if we froze, we are somehow to blame for not fighting. But your amygdala assesses the threat and reacts. If you froze, that was your amygdala's assessment of the risk to your safety and the central nervous system's reaction to that threat. Whatever you did or didn't do at the time, you did your best to survive, and you are not to blame. Often when I process a trauma with someone, they feel that the freeze was somehow their acceptance of the sexual assault. Not so. They assess that to fight might put them at more risk. It's important to come to peace with whatever your central nervous system did. Even thank yourself for keeping yourself safe by freezing. In summary, people who have experienced sexual assault tend to carry the shame, responsibility, or accountability that should be carried by the person who did this to you. You did not ask for it, and it was not your fault. The essence of the lasting trauma is that it changes how you see yourself, others, and your life, how you feel about yourself and your safety in the world. 2 more thoughts as you heal. Number 1, practice self-compassion above all else. What would you say to a friend who told you your story? At the same time, recognize that you would never treat someone the way you were treated. Would you ever have sex with someone who was intoxicated, or that you had to force or coerce into sex? Or would you push past others' limits for your own pleasure? So what do you really think about someone who thinks that's okay? And number 2, respect your trauma triggers. Recognize that if your central nervous system is triggered, that rush of adrenaline is real. Don't call it general anxiety when it's really a reaction to a trauma trigger. Your trauma can be triggered by something like a cologne, or thinking that you saw that person, or even seeing a car like the one they drove. Almost anything can be a trigger. If you are safe, and it's just a random trigger, practice some self-calming techniques such as the relaxation visualization exercise in one of my previous videos. If you're triggered by your current partner and he is not sensitive to your past trauma, if he is pushy or not caring in how he treats you, you need to care enough about yourself to end that relationship. Don't try to push past the self-protective nature of your trauma trigger. This can create ongoing chronic trauma, damaging your emotions, your sense of self, safety, and even continuing to damage your brain chemistry. If you care about someone who's been assaulted, listen, don't minimize, don't rationalize, don't justify. Listen for how it impacted that person and what they need from you to help them heal. Support them and find help if you feel overwhelmed or if they are not healing. Recognize their triggers and do your best to support them if and when those happen. Sexual assault and trauma happen throughout the world every day to men and women. Any unwanted sexual activity is an assault. Talk about it. Don't carry another's shame, blame, or accountability. Care for and have compassion for yourself and for others. There are several other pertinent videos on trauma, anxiety, emotional and physical boundaries that might be helpful. And if you appreciated this video, please hit like and subscribe so you'll be notified when our next videos come out. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you again soon.